In the last decade for Nebraska football, I legitimately cannot think of a bigger game than this one this coming weekend against the 21st ranked Michigan Wolverines. This is a massive opportunity for the Nebraska Cornhuskers to say to the college football world, we are all the way back, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Caden Kubler, and thank you guys for joining us today. We have a monster game this weekend in Lincoln, Nebraska, between the 21st ranked Michigan Wolverines against the ascending Nebraska Cornhuskers. I'll be breaking it down for you guys today and what this truly means for Nebraska if they are going to make the college football playoff for the first time in this team's history. This is a huge opportunity for this team. There's no sugarcoating it. This is the moment that they've been building for under Matt Rhule. We all heard coming into this year that year 3 would be different in the Matt Rhule era, and I was one of the talking heads saying it for this team. I thought Nebraska would make it into the college football playoff, and I still believe it. The path is to get 10 wins, but they've got to beat Michigan at home this weekend. But it starts with Matt Rhule and the culture that he's been building in year 3. We obviously saw a shaky year 1 where he started 5-3. They lost the last 4, but you felt good because he was still ahead of schedule. Last year, he finally wins the bowl game for the first time in a while, and it really felt like all the stars were aligning for Nebraska to have this huge year 3 leap like Matt Rhule has done at every single program that he's been at. He did it at Temple, he did it at Baylor, and it feels like he's going to do it this year at Nebraska. And I really feel like this is the biggest opportunity that Nebraska's had over the last decade to prove to the college football world that they are a legitimate contender, ladies and gentlemen. I felt the same way last year that I did coming into this game. Nebraska was 4-0. They had just gotten ranked right before Illinois. They were at home. Illinois was also rated, so if they pulled off this win, they were going to be 5-0, and they would legitimately have a college football resume through the first 5 weeks. They lost that game. We all know how that went with the interception that should have been a touchdown. So much fluky stuff happened. Nebraska ultimately lost it, and their season was a little bit derailed. I view this game as the same exact thing for Nebraska. They've got an opportunity now to go 4-0, prove that they're one of the best teams in the Big Ten, prove that they can be a team that makes it into the college football playoff. If they're 4-0 with a ranked win, you're putting the rest of the Big Ten on notice if you go out here and beat Michigan, but you've got to get it done. They're a 2.5-point favorite right now. This is going to be a gritty, gutsy game, but I'm excited to see what Nebraska can do defensively. Most importantly, right now, there are only 3 teams in the nation with a top 10 scoring offense and a top 10 scoring defense, and that is going to be your BYU Cougars, your Nebraska Cornhuskers, and your Indiana Hoosiers. Nebraska has been really good through the first few weeks. Now, there was a lot of maybe concern after week 1. The offense didn't look like this unit that had really improved so much because that was the one thing we had all wanted to see. The defense was good last year, wasn't great, but the offense in particular with Dylan Raiola really wasn't great, and it wasn't his fault whatsoever. I'm not putting any of the blame on him. The receivers could not create any separation. The offensive line wasn't great, and of course, the play calling was atrocious, but you get Emmett Johnson back this year, who has just been a workhorse back. You got 2 great receivers in Isaiah Hunter and obviously Dane Key, and you've got a really, really good quarterback right now in Dylan Raiola, who is absolutely cooking, and he's going to be the recipe for this team if they're going to make it into the college football playoff. In week 1 against Cincinnati, there was a lot of dinking and dunking. People were upset with the offense overall. I felt Dylan Raiola, as a young quarterback, really took some big time strides and took what the defense gave him. He was completing the ball at a high rate. He wasn't putting the ball in harm's way except for that one throw that almost was a pick 6, but he's been really, really good this year, and he's been taking care of the football. Most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, Dylan Raiola has been cooking. He has over 800 yards in 3 games, 8 total touchdowns, and 0 interceptions, and he's completing over 76% of his passes. That is a huge increase from last year. And whenever you have a young quarterback who's completing at a 76% clip, that is going to be really great for your offense. Obviously, the competition hasn't been the most stiff, but we're going to see whether this Nebraska team is legit or not against Michigan this weekend. Michigan obviously will not have Sharon Moore this weekend. They added on to his suspension for some of the Michigan scandals that have been happening over the last few years. So he will miss this game. And for Michigan, the one thing that I'm going to be looking at is how they run the ball. This team doesn't necessarily scare me with the downfield passing. Nebraska's got one of the best secondaries in the country. They've got a ton of experience in that secondary in specific, but it's Nebraska's front seven. Can this D-line meet Michigan's offensive line? Can they go pound for pound? Can they battle in the trenches ultimately to stop this run? Because if they can, Nebraska's going to win this football game. But if they can't, Nebraska will lose this football game. We saw Cincinnati have a lot of success in the running game against the Cornhuskers. Obviously, Brandon Sorsby, their quarterback, was just dominating in the run game, and that was more of the scramble drill. Nebraska would just go super deep, and he would take what the defense was giving him. But Nebraska's going to have to be careful about Bryce Underwood's legs. Whenever he's dropping back, they've got to be careful about him scrambling. And of course, Michigan, they love to run the football, and that's been the identity of this team over the last few years. If Nebraska's going to let them run the football over and over and over again, and they can't stop it, and the front seven can't get stops, this is going to be a long game for Nebraska. On the other hand, Nebraska doesn't have to worry about this Michigan team beating them through the air, in my opinion. I think Nebraska's secondary is going to be good enough to stop a young quarterback in Bryce Underwood. Bryce Underwood was the #1 player in the 2025 class. He was a 5-star. He was an absolute dog. He went to Michigan for a ton of money, and now he gets to go into Lincoln for his first ever Big Ten game on the road with no Sharon Moore, with an offense that is not going to make a ton of plays around him outside of the running game. Like, he doesn't have some receivers that he can get the ball to or lob it up to that are going to make plays for him. It's going to be, can this team dominate you at the line of scrimmage? Can they run the ball at an efficient clip? And Nebraska, they haven't played the toughest opponents over the last 2 weeks, so we really aren't able to gauge what this defense is going to look like since that Cincinnati game, because it was a little bit concerning how Cincinnati was running the ball against them. But Nebraska offensively, I think, has looked a lot better over the last 2 weeks, and that's where you've got to be optimistic. If Nebraska can continue to protect the football, if Dillon continues to protect the football, this is not a Michigan team that's going to give you a bunch of deep plays. They're not going to give you deep shots. This is a great defense. Dillon is going to have to take what the defense gives him again, and I believe that's going to be the recipe for success, and that's what Dillon's become so accustomed to doing in this offense. I really think him and Holgerson have come along a lot recently. What Dillon's going to need to hit, it's going to be those deep 15-yard digs over the middle of the field, the dink and dunks, the quick hitches, the 5-yard outs, the slants, you name it. But it's going to start with Dylan Raiola being efficient. If he doesn't turn the football over, this Nebraska team will win the game. That's ultimately my prediction. I like Nebraska to win this game. I think Michigan coming on the road with everything stacked against them. No Sharon Moore, a true freshman quarterback who's never played a Big Ten game. Yeah, they went on the road against Oklahoma, but this offense looked abysmal. I think Nebraska's going to step up. This is the biggest opportunity this team has had in the last 10 years, so I don't think anyone would be surprised if they would drop the ball in classic Nebraska fashion, but I believe this is a new era. They're turning over a new leaf with Matt Rule, and I believe that the Cornhuskers get this one done. The path is 10 wins, ladies and gentlemen. If this team can get to 10 wins, they can make the college football playoff, and it starts with Michigan. If they pull off this win against Michigan, they've got a home game against Michigan State. I think they move to 5-0. They go on the road against Maryland. It's a very winnable game. And then you go on the road against Minnesota. That'll be a tougher one, but I think Nebraska can also win that one. Then you're at home against Northwestern. That should be a win. Then you're at home against USC, who's 25th in the country right now, so that'll be a big one for the resume. Then you're on the road against UCLA. They're not any good right now. Then you're on the road against Penn State, #2 in the country. That's probably a game Nebraska loses. And then you are at home against Iowa. So it seems like right now, Nebraska's got to win this game against Michigan to really have a lot of momentum to get to 10 wins. 10 wins does get you into the college football playoff, in my opinion. I'm very optimistic about this Nebraska team. I've loved the strides that this offense has taken over the last few weeks. They've got to be good. They've got to protect the football. And most importantly, they've got to win the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football. Give me the Cornhuskers to pull off a massive upset here in week 4 of our college football slate. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate you guys watching. My name is Caden Kubler from Caden's Corner. We'll see you guys later.